So you've got a new entrepreneur. And let's take the example of what you're talking about, an entrepreneur with the lowly 600 or 560 credit score. And that's almost a death sentence to get credit. That's almost a death sentence to get anything except for a car, one of those car lots that you pay outrageous percentages. How do you tell that new entrepreneur or existing entrepreneur what they need to do to be able to fund their business better?
Well, I want to back up a little bit, if that's okay. I want
back up.
people to understand what your credit score actually is.
Okay.
FICO, which is the most trusted credit scoring model out there, and there's lots of them out there. There's Vantage, there's TransRisk, there's Paydex, there's Liquid Score. I mean, there's a lot of different scores. And when you go online and you look at Credit Karma, or you go to Identity IQ, or even go to one of my companies, creditmojo.com, it's not a FICO score. Why? Because FICO's the Rolls Royce of the scoring model, and it's very expensive. And so you will buy a different score that's similar, but not a FICO score. Now, with your FICO score, and in all scores, this is a general rule of thumb. Your credit score is a prediction of whether or not you will pay your bills on time over the next 2 years. That is all it is. What's the likelihood of Jeffrey having a late payment and not paying on time? Since 1956, FICO has created billions and billions of credit scores with a very, very high accuracy on whether or not you will pay your bills. They predict the future.
Hey, welcome to Networking Star. I am your host, Jeffery Boyle. Here at Networking Star, I interview some of the coolest entrepreneurs, influencers, thought leaders, and people that just help us and inspire us to want to have, be, and do more in life. Today, I am joined by Rondi Lambeth. He is a credit expert, a business coach, a pilot, and he helps business owners increase their credit scores. And so doing, he helps them reduce their taxes, make more money, and eliminate debt. He's been on CNN, he's been on ABC, he's been on NBC, he's been all over the place. And I am honored, Rondi, that you would be with me here on Networking Star. Thanks for joining me.
And I'm glad to be here, and hopefully I can provide some value for you, and hopefully I can provide some value for your audience and make a difference in their life. So thanks for having me on.
It's a big deal what you're doing as an entrepreneur. When I was first an entrepreneur, and by the way, you and I live within a throw. You know, if I had a really good arm, I could throw a rock and hit your house from where I'm at. But we live in the same city, and it's interesting. We've never met each other. But when I was first starting my business, I funded it. This is 25 years ago. I funded it with credit cards. And I had what you put on your Instagram, that elusive 800 credit score. As a result, I got a lot of credit cards, and I built it up to about $200,000 in credit cards. And I was playing this shell game of paying one off with the other, and eventually my revenues couldn't keep up with it. It's almost like the US government, I suppose, but they can just print new money. I couldn't. And so then all of a sudden I found myself screwed. So I loved going through your stuff. Explain a little bit of what you do and how you do it. I don't want to tell your story.
Here's what we do. We teach people how to maximize their credit so they can minimize their debt and multiply their assets. That's really the three things that we teach. And with that, along the way, they learn how to, use their personal credit to establish, if they're a business owner, how to establish the business credit so they no longer have to use personal credit for the business. And then they start learning things like how to write off your children. I know you have 5 kids. I bet you didn't know that there's an actual extra little law that allows you to write off $350,000 per child, which would be about $1.5 million that you, Jeffrey, could have earned and never paid a dime on taxes. So we teach people that they're not loopholes. We teach them what the CPAs know, but the CPAs are too lazy to share with their clients. And then we teach them how to take that money they save from Uncle Sam and then eliminate their credit card debt, eliminate their consumer debt. With our software, they take their 30-year mortgage, it converts it to a 10-year mortgage without refinancing, without making extra payments, not extra 2 weeks or once a month or extra $100. Same payment, but it eliminates 20 years of interest. And then we show them how to start investing this primarily in multifamily, which is what I specialize in. So really, we are the middle classes financial planner, if you will, like their wealth coach. So that's what we do at Fortress, but it generally starts with credit education because most people don't know how to manage money. They're not taught about money. The government doesn't want you to know how money works or credit works. Your family doesn't teach you. So we teach them what the government doesn't want you to know and what the schools don't teach. And look, starting a business with credit cards, great. I wish I could say that I started my business with a credit card, but I can't because when I started my business, I had just filed bankruptcy, so I had no credit cards. And now I can tell you this, though, 16 years later, I would not be sitting here with you today if it wasn't for my credit cards, because it was my credit cards that have enabled me to make it through the desert, if you will. Because without the credit cards, I wouldn't have been able to pay for Facebook ads. And you can scale your business so much faster if you have good credit. The problem is most people don't scale it fast enough. And they take their foot off the gas pedal and they slow down a little bit. And then next thing you know, 30 days later, you owe a credit card bill and you took your foot off the gas and now you can't pay it. So that's what we do.
I think it's also not just taking your foot off the gas, and I agree with that for a lot of people. It is simply not being very directed with what you're trying to sell, or being way too optimistic with yourself of the runway of what it takes to be able to run it. And my story with that $200,000 is pretty easy. I couldn't pay it any longer. I couldn't. Yeah. I ran out of credit cards to apply to. I ran out of those 0% six month no interest kind of thing. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting there looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. And even worse now, you have the inability to fund your business. You can't. It was a house of cards. And so I think so much of what I was watching on your Instagram channel just makes so much sense. Tell me. So you've got a new entrepreneur, and let's take the example of what you're talking about, an entrepreneur with the lowly 600 or 560 credit score. And that's almost a death sentence to get credit. That's almost a death sentence to get anything except for a car, one of those car lots that you pay outrageous percentages. How do you tell that new entrepreneur or existing entrepreneur what they need to do to be able to fund their business better?
Well, I want to back up a little bit, if that's okay. I want
back up.
to understand what your credit score actually is.
Okay.
FICO, which is the most trusted credit scoring model out there, and there's lots of them out there. There's Vantage, there's TransRisk, there's PaidX, there's Liquid Score. I mean, there's a lot of different scores. And when you go online and you look at Credit Karma, or you go to Identity IQ, or even go to one of my companies, creditmojo.com, it's not a FICO score. Why? Because FICO's the Rolls Royce of the scoring model, and it's very expensive. And so you will buy a different score that's similar, but not a FICO score. Now, with your FICO score, and in all scores, this is a general rule of thumb. Your credit score is a prediction of whether or not you will pay your bills on time over the next 2 years. That is all it is. What's the likelihood of Jeffrey having a late payment and not paying on time? Since 1956, FICO has created billions and billions of credit scores with a very, very high accuracy on whether or not you will pay your bills. They predict the future. So that range, 300 to 850. A 300 represents a 30% chance you'll pay your bills on time. An 850 represents a 85% chance you'll pay your bills on time over the next 2 years. So if you have a 560, there's a 56% chance you'll pay your bills on time. Now, this is as someone who's trained by FICO, it's a rough estimate of what that score. There's a lot more that goes into it, but this is the simplest way to explain it. So when people see, oh, I got a 720, that represents to the bank there's a 72% chance you will pay them if they loan you money. Here's the thing that people don't know about credit. Your credit score never gets you approved. Credit scores don't get you approved for loans. Credit scores get you in the door. What gets you approved is the ability to pay back the loan. A credit score will get you denied, but it never gets you approved. It just gets the door open for you. It is your ability to pay it back that gets you approved. So as a business owner, you don't have to have good personal credit to get business funding. I have over 500 different banks in my system that will loan you money, and many of them don't even look at your personal credit. I have one right now that if you open a bank account with them, deposit money in the bank account, after 90 days, if you call the bank up and say, I want to apply for the line of credit, it's called the Minuteman line of credit. Surprisingly, it's in California, and so I'm surprised they haven't changed the name yet from Minuteman to Minute Person. But anyway, it's called Minuteman Loan. And it's a one-page application, name, phone number, email, etc. Sign it, date it. Takes 1 minute. They give you $100,000. $100,000. And I meet with business owners all the time. They're like, it's just $100,000. That's not much. Someone starting out a business, $100,000 is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
If you are a business owner, $100,000 is a big deal because banks do not loan money to people who need money.
Yeah.
They loan money to people who can pay it back and don't necessarily need it. They don't want needy people. They want people that can pay it back. So that person with a 560 personal, what I would say to them is you need to increase your personal credit score. And there's many things you can do. In fact, 70% of your credit score has nothing to do with your payment history. 70%. And yet most people focus on the 70%. So it's like exercise. You look pretty fit. Do you work out on a regular basis, Jeffrey?
Yeah, 6 days a week.
You can't outrun your mouth. And what I mean by that is if you ate poorly, it doesn't matter what you do for exercise, you can't outrun your mouth.
Yeah,
if you're
true.
Eating 5,000 calories a day of Coke and donuts, you can't work out enough to burn those calories. You're going to get fat, right? So with that, you can't outrun your bad credit, but you can work if you start controlling the 70% that has nothing to do with payment history. You're going to go from a 560 to maybe a 650.
So what's that 70% then? I mean, that's the thing with it. It's, I thought myself a bit of a credit expert on this. I'm obviously not. That you're talking stuff. I have to admit, I was like, I didn't know that. You said a couple things. I didn't know that either. And I learned most of it when I was getting all the banks calling me and telling me what a slacker I was 20 some odd years ago because I couldn't pay them. This is fascinating to me. So what is that 70% paid on? Because I now have that elusive 800 credit score again. But, it took me 10 years to get it back after destroying myself by stopping my payments.
So I'm going to answer your question right after I say this, because you brought something up, and I'm a little bit older. I'm 50 years old, and I'll probably forget if I don't answer it right now. So here's the thing. It takes 10 years to build an 800 credit score, an 800 FICO, personal 800. It takes 20 years to build an 850. You have to have an account that's at least 20 years old to have an 850. With business credit, it takes 3 months to build the equivalent of an 800 and only 6 months to build the equivalent of an 850 FICO personal score.
What I was telling you when you got on here, I do these shows as much as anything to meet really cool people. I also learn so much from each of the people that are coming on here. And I end up, I almost always have conversations afterwards like, really? I didn't know that. Really? I didn't know that. And you're getting me today. And I really thought I was prepared for you. But, it's the kind of thing. So talk to me about that. So you really kind of shattered even my question that I asked you is how does that 560 get money? He or she doesn't get it from that 560. He or she gets it from what you're saying is building up your business credit on there. So you've reframed it for me. You go ahead and ask the question properly and then answer it yourself. How about that? Because I screwed it up.
So you didn't screw it up. So how does a business owner with a 560 credit score get credit for the business?
Yeah.
You don't do it through your personal credit because you have a 560. All you can do is increase that personal credit so you qualify for some more business credit because they will look at your personal credit.
Okay.
It's like going to the doctor. First thing they're going to do is they put that cold ass stethoscope on your chest. They listen to it. They listen to your breath. But even if you're going in because your back hurts, they still do your blood pressure. They still are looking at some other stuff. And then they diagnose what the problem is. So they still look at your personal credit. Doesn't disqualify you, but it might disqualify you from one of their other programs.
Gotcha.
So what you do if you have a 560 is you build your business credit up, and in 90 days, you can have the equivalent of an 800 FICO. And you do that by getting certain types of loans, vendor account, net 30 accounts. Have you ever got those big catalogs in the mail from Uline or Granger or Gepler?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's how you establish it, is you get a net 30 account. And we have dozens of these types of accounts in our system. So you get an account with Granger, Uline, Gepler, a net 30. You buy something from them. You wait a couple weeks and then you send them a check and pay it off. Then you buy some more napkins. You buy some more paper towels. You buy some.
And you're suggesting buying this, though, in the name of your business, not in your personal. And I assume that the first credit that they may give you is really limited. But buy what you can and pay it off is what you're suggesting.
Yes. They're going to give you a very small account, maybe $1,000 credit limit. You have to pay it off in full within 30 days. If you do not, they're going to report you late, and now you have bad credit for the next 5 years on your business and you can't fix it. So you don't get any grace period. If it's due on the 1st and you pay on the 2nd, you're 30 days late, it's over. You got 5 years now to suffer from that. So
or start a new LLC because you've screwed that one up. So
essentially, that's what you do.
Yeah,
you can actually fix business credit by giving them thousands of dollars. You basically bribe them. So with personal credit, you can't bribe the bank, but with business credit, there's no laws restricting it. So you just basically bribe the bank.
That's okay with personal because now the administration is giving you a better mortgage rate if you have a 560 than you do an 800 anyway. So, I mean, what do you need good credit for anyways? So that is fascinating.
What's sad about that, it was Ronald Reagan created that program, by the way.
Oh, no.
It wasn't Joe Biden. It was Ronald Reagan. Joe Biden just changed it a little bit. And that's the publicity was, look at Joe Biden at it again. It was actually changed in the 80s to do that. But anyway, I want to get back to your question. How do you get the other 70%?
Yeah.
Payment history is one piece. There's 5 essential things on any credit score. There's payment history, which represents, if you look at the FICO pie chart, it actually says 35%, but I said 30. That's because I know how the algorithm is created. It's actually 30%. So 30% for payment history, 15% for types of accounts. So they want to see a mortgage, a car loan, and 3 credit cards. 10% is new credit, or otherwise known as inquiries. 10% is how long you've had credit. And the last one is balances owed, which is 30%. But here's what you don't know. It's balances owed on all of your balances, but 90% of the balances owed is credit cards.
So that's another question I have on this. And so you what you're doing is you're dispelling. I mean, I was able to repair my credit. It took a long time to do it. And it was embarrassing to me that it dropped it so low. When I got married to my wife, she had $2,000 of debt on credit cards. And I remember thinking, how could you be so irresponsible? And here I come, is like, whoa, I wish I had $2,000 debt. My wife and I don't carry balances on. I've got a lease on a car. And we're thinking, oh, let's just pay for it. I don't carry balances on credit cards. I have zero debt except for a lease on a car. And I was considering maybe I just pay that off. But I love having, the options on, having really wonderful credit. Are you suggesting that you carry some balances for a period on some of the cards the same way you do with a car loan? I don't even have a mortgage payment anymore. So what are you suggesting for a guy like me that's been super responsible with it, but wants to maintain that credit score like that?
I'm actually going to say something that you probably are shocked to hear. And a lot of people online are going to tell you this, that you need to carry it. Mr. Dave Ramsey's like, your credit score is how well you handle your debt. He's wrong.
Yeah.
You don't have to be in debt. And I put that in quotations.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay interest in order to have great credit. You have an 800 FICO score. You don't carry debt on credit cards. You have a lease, which you could get out of your lease at any time.
Sure.
But technically, if you use a credit card, you technically have debt to the bank.
Well, see,
you just don't pay interest.
Okay, so that's the thing is I use my American Express for all business expenses. I use my Capital One for all of my personal expenses. So I don't use debit cards. I use credit cards for everything. I get free flights. I get free this. I get free that. And I love it. Yeah. So that's okay, is what you're saying.
100%. In fact, I teach to never use a debit card.
Yeah.
And if you do have to use a debit card because you live in an area that has an amazing store called Winco, they only accept debit cards or cash.
They do, you're right.
Then you can use a debit card, but here's what you do with the debit card. You set up a separate bank account with a little bit of money that you only use at Winco. Because I've literally been on the phone with attorneys losing their mind, sobbing, because they used a debit card which was attached to their operating account and someone hacked it and it drained it. And it wiped them out and they couldn't pay payroll. I've done this so many times when people are freaking out because when you use a debit card, there's no Visa protection.
Yeah. You
have to prove to the bank it was fraud. Versus if you use a Visa card, American Express, MasterCard, not a debit card, the merchant has to prove that it was a legitimate charge and they instantly credit back. But I digress a little bit on the debit card thing. Back to your original question.
You realize that this is, we're talking about enough different things that this could fill about, I typically do about 22 minutes per person. We could probably do 2 more hours. And I guess that's why you get paid the big bucks, brother, is because I thought I was pretty good at this. I'm a lawyer, well, used to be, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I've had terrible credit and I've brought it back like a beast. And I did all the negotiation with American Express and Visa and Washington Mutual and all these different banks to get it paid back. I was thinking, wow, I'm not going to learn much. That was really conceited, but I thought it's like I am completely a novice at this stuff, and I think if I'm a novice, the general public now, once again, people are saying, "Man, Jeff is really conceited." Well, I really thought I knew some stuff about this, and really thought that I had my bases covered. You are kind of blowing my mind, and I have done a bad job with my business, even my new business that we've started. I need to do a better job of getting it some credit now. I'm not talking later. I need to do it now. Get me a Granger catalog, for heaven's sakes, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, you got to do it before you need the money. Otherwise, banks won't loan you. You can't get fire insurance on your house when your house is on fire.
Yeah.
And I can tell you this, I do a lot of public speaking, and people ask, like, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, whatever you want me to talk about, and what time, I don't care. I'm flexible because I can talk for hours. Yeah. I can talk for minutes, whatever you want. I know this so well inside and out. I can tell you that every time I go somewhere and speak, the common thing that I hear from the feedback is they wish they would have had me speak longer.
Absolutely. I think that's the thing. Like, I need to book with you another one that we can do this again. But this time, rather than me, you need to lay out for me, all right, this is phase 1, phase 2. Now, I don't want to take away from all of what you do with it, but just the general topics. Because one, I want people to be able to benefit who listen to this on how to be a better entrepreneur. And this is something that everybody screws up. I mean, you know better than I, but I would guess that 95% of the business owners are not doing it properly.
Yeah, I would say probably higher than that, but
okay.
We'll go 95%. Yeah. I do want to answer your question because it's really valid question. And there's so much misinformation online, like ChatGPT and everything else. And I know people are listening to it and they're like, Rondi, we just answered the damn question, which was, should you carry a balance on a credit
Well, I
card?
did ask that 20 minutes ago. So will you answer the dang question I asked you 20 minutes ago?
I know. The answer is generally no. Generally, no. You don't. The answer is you do not need to carry a balance on a credit card in order to have a better credit score. In fact, the higher the balance is, the lower your credit score will be.
Yeah, and that's. Now, I guess I got that part right. I'm carrying a high D+ now with my knowledge of this. I got that one right.
Well, let's see if we can move that up to a C.
Okay.
What is the proper utilization rate on a credit card? Utilization rate is if your credit limit's $1,000 and you owe $300, that would be a 30% utilization rate. What is the proper utilization in order to have the maximum credit score? What do you think it is?
That's why you're here. I'm gonna shoot for 70.
Okay. All the real estate professionals are on right now like, pick me. I know the answer. It's 30 to 50%. Now, why would they say that? Because the banks taught the real estate professionals 30 to 50. Now, why would a bank tell them 30 to 50? Because 30 to 50 will lower your credit score 30 to 50 points. How do bank makes money? Off of interest. The lower the credit score, the higher the interest rate.
Yeah.
The real number is 1 to 5%.
Wow. Okay. See, I'm back down to it. I'm back down to a solid D on this one. I was way off. So once again, I have credit cards with not massive balances, but it's like I never come close to utilizing them out.
That's why you have an 800 credit score, by the way. That's why you have an 800 is because your credit limits are so high that when you do put a couple $1,000s on it, your utilization rate is below that 5%. If you want to do a little experiment, go max out one of those credit cards.
No, I'm not going to. So let's max out your credit card. It's like, I did that before. I'm not going to do that again. But no, I hear you. That is.
So your question was, should you carry a balance on the credit card?
Right.
And generally, the answer is no. You don't want to carry the balance because you're going to pay interest. And then the next problem with that is you're going to have a higher utilization rate, which will lower your credit score because the majority of your credit score, so the majority of your credit score is how you use your credit card.
How responsible.
It is more important than everything else on your credit report. Because what FICO has figured out after creating literally billions and billions, and it's in the hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, dollars. They've made hundreds of billions of dollars. But next time I see Julie is my friend that works for FICO that travels, and I see her a couple times a year. I'll ask her how many scores they've actually created. I think it's in the hundreds of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of scores created.
Wow.
And what they figured out is people that have at least 3 credit cards that keep their balances between 1% and 5% are more likely to never miss a payment. And if you go over 5% utilization rate, you're more likely to miss a payment. This is what happens when you have billions of lines of data to compare to.
Yeah.
So what most people do wrong, personal and business side, is they use the credit cards to manage their life and they pay it off in full on the due date. But unfortunately, it's already been reported to the credit bureaus because the bureaus get the data from the bank 2 weeks before your due date. So you need to pay your credit cards off by the statement date, which is generally 2 weeks before the due date. If you pay it on the due date, it's already been reported. So if you have a $1,000 credit limit or $1 million credit limit, FICO doesn't care the dollar amount, they care about the percentage.
The percentage.
So if you have a $1,000 credit limit and you owe $1,000 and you pay it on the due date, 2 weeks before that, the bank reported to FICO through the credit bureaus that you're 100% utilized. And then you pay it off, they don't know about it, and by the time they report the next month, you've already maxed it out again.
Yeah.
This is why. So when people come up to me and they're like, I have no late payments, but I'm stuck in the 600s. I say, oh, it's simple. It's credit cards. They're like, no, I pay my credit cards off in full. I'm like, I can literally predict the future of what they're going to say.
Yeah.
And I say, I know. You pay off your credit cards in full, but the problem is you're paying off in full on the due date, not the statement date. And
Which
it's
is
like
too
deer
late.
in the headlight.
Well, I would tell you that this has been extraordinarily helpful for me. And I would guess that so many other people are going to have their mind blown with what with just the taste of what you've given them. Well, this has been very helpful for me, and I hope for the people who are listening to this are getting the same out of it. Thank you, Rondi, for being a part of Networking Star.